Hi. Thank you once again to all of you for coming to another exciting installment of the 2014 Food for Thought Lecture Series here at the Whaling Museum. If you haven't already, please take the time now to silence your cell phones as to not to disrupt today's presentation. We thank you as always for supporting this free community program, which is made possible in part by the M.S. Worthington Foundation. Mary Malavase came to Nantucket in May of 1973 for a summer job and never left. Her work experience on the island has been in the lodging industry, and she's held key management positions at several island hotels, and she's now a broker for Atlantic East Nantucket Real Estate. She has served as president of the Nantucket Island Chamber of Commerce, president of the Nantucket Lodging Association, and is currently a member of the Board of Trustees here at the NHA. As a member of the Nantucket Garden Club and a committee member for the annual Daffodil Flower Show, Mary assists people in staging and entering their daffodils. She is also an accredited judge for the American Daffodil Society. Today, Mary will give us a little bit of the history behind the 40 years of the Daffodil Weekend, and she will also show us how easy it can be to have an award-winning daffodil in the show. So everybody, please join me and give a warm welcome to Mary Malavase.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here to talk about my favorite subject, and especially after the winter we've had, I think we're all ready for spring of any sort, even if it is a very yellow spring at the moment. I did, as was just mentioned, came here a long time ago and happily have attended, I know I'm so young, but have attended all 40 shows. So I do remember where we started, where we came from, and in the very beginning, of course, I was strictly a spectator. I was too scared to ever grow a daffodil and enter, so that came a little bit later. But as you see when we proceed, how many know this woman? Several in the room do. That's Jean McGoslin. Jean had the wonderful vision of planting daffodils not only to beautify the roadside, but also to get people excited after a bad winter and having a little color. So Jean was responsible for bringing in, I think the first truckload was 8 tons of daffodils. Buddy Egan from Marine Home Center back then helped and housed all the daffodils. And the planting began. Milestone Road, of course, was the first one. And it was very interesting in that it was done by a lot of volunteers that would go out. Jean had these little yellow burgee flags made, and you sort of went out with your group, and you planted along the road, and you put the flag in, and then the next group came along and saw that the flags never disappeared, found the flag, and continued to plant. That was a valiant effort in the fall of '74, but unfortunately the town the following year decided they were going to mow the lawn a little too early. And as we all know, daffodils need time to wither and turn yellow to become next year's flower. So we had to do it all over again. But we learned it was an education process, not only for the garden club, but also for the volunteers. The first show was on a Friday. It was, I believe, May 6th in 1975, and it was held at the Boys and Girls Club. Many of you who know Jack Gardner, who is still on the island, and Suzanne's been very involved in the NHA over the years, that's the ribbon cutting at the Boys and Girls Club. Naturally, it came from the I&M, a little black and white, a little grainy, and not the easiest thing to see. We had no supplies then. As I said, I was strictly the spectator, but when you walked into the Boys and Girls Club, they had plenty of pool tables and game tables for the kids. So this is what the very first show looked like. The pool tables were covered with plastic, and we didn't have any fancy holders like we have now. It was before plastic Coke bottles and soda bottles, so all of those daffodils were staged in bottles. Didn't care what color it was, they needed something just to hold the water. And obviously it worked. We had artistic arrangements as well as, if you look at this now and come to the show, you'll see this is not how you would stage a daffodil today. They're a little long, they're a little, I mean, they're not really looking at you. So we've come a long way, put it that way. But this was the very first show. We did have flower arrangements, the same as we have artistic classes this year. There again, another pool table, works beautifully. And if you can't find a pool table, you can always use a boardroom table. So that was the first show. It was a fun event to go to. It was strictly one afternoon, and that was the only event. The parade wasn't started until 3 years later. And the parade was the wonderful endeavor by Flint Ranney, who we lost a year and a half ago. Flint had a fire engine. We have to have a fire engine in a parade. Hammy Hurd had a fire engine. So there was always this rivalry between who was going to lead the parade. And basically it came down to whose fire engine would start. Because there were several parades when those fire engines were towed to Sconset. But we don't talk about that. But there is Flint, one of the very first parades. I have shared this picture with the family, so it's okay, I think, to go into the NHA archives, considering Flint was past president of the NHA. But the young lady in the pink pants is our current town manager, his daughter, Libby Gibson. So don't tell her I really showed the world and it's now going to be on YouTube, but this will tell you how long ago it was. It was great fun. The woman to Flint's right is Martha Walters. The parade continued up Main Street that year, and my dear, dear friends, who are both no longer with us, Bernie and Grace Grossman, Grace had a little antique car called the Princess. And she said, now Bernie, we have a princess. You have to make a crown. So the parade continued, and there's the crown on the princess. And if you'll notice, Bernie in the front seat driving the car, he also had a crown on. She made him wear this wonderful sort of headpiece. But that was, I think, the very first parade. There's Jean McGoslin's car. Now you know why we had to have a parade. Jean herself had an antique Rolls and said, well, we've got all these daffodils that are planted. It was 3 years after the first planting. We had to take a ride. We have to go to Sconset. We have to see these things. So there's Jean driving her own car that she had decorated and waving to all of us as she went to out to Sconset. Jean and her husband, Earl McGoslin, for those of you that don't know, were the founders of Gourmet Magazine. So when you have a parade, you have to have food. So consequently, that's how the picnic started. And Jean said, well, we're going to drive all the way out there very slowly. We have to have food when we get there. So this was Jean's picnic the first year. She just had little baskets made up for a lot of her friends and people that would stop by. And it was very simple. And they had their baskets, and Jean just stood there and handed them out to people. So it was great, great fun. The Garden Club, of course, over the years has continued planting, especially after the debacle of the town mowing. We've educated them as well. The plantings that we did for the 25th show, this year being our 40th, was the Popus Road bike path had just been completed at that point, and Jean and I had the fun task of picking out the varieties that we were going to plant along the Popus Road. Jean was here for the 25th, and we ended up picking early, mid, and late season daffodils. So you'll notice now a lot of your yellow daffodils are the ones that come out early. But by doing the 3 different seasons, you can get 4 to 6 weeks of bloom. So when you're buying bulbs for your own yard, just look and see. This year, obviously, the early ones are out. You remember, was it 2 years ago, when Sally Nash's refrigerator had a front page picture in the paper? Because it was so early that year with the flowers that we were teaching people how to refrigerate them so we would have something for the show. We have continued planting. We did the fairgrounds, the garden club did the fairgrounds road, bike path spur. I think that was about 7 or 8 years ago. And you'll notice that we did the same early, mid, and late. So some of them are coming out now, but you'll see those daffodils on that road until well into mid-May, especially this year. It could even be Memorial Day. Everything's so late, but we'll see. This past November, with the help of Dave Shampoo, many of you know Dave. He's a wonderful landscape gardener here. Dave came down here, and I first met Dave when he was working for Walter Beinecke and Sherburne Associates, and Walter said, you have to go plant 25 bulbs, and Dave went, okay, we can do that. And he planted them and is still planting bulbs today for a lot of us. He did the garden club this past November. We did 15,500 bulbs. Of course, he has a wonderful crew. They did it in a day. It would have taken us weeks. But it's along the new Hummock Pond Road bike path leading out to Bartlett Farm and out to Cisco. That bike path, as you know, opened last June. So we thought, oh, what better gift for the island would be to put some daffodils in there. So that the garden club donated quite a bit of funds for it, as well as if you come to the flower show, it's free, but we have a wonderful donation basket, and what we do is we save that up. And I had been saving for about 7 years that basket, knowing the bike path was going to be completed so that we would have enough funds, to do that. There's another project that is just ongoing now. I didn't know Sally and Peter Nash would be sitting here in the front row, but this is Sally's garden last year. And these were some of her many varieties. Sally's been on the American Daffodil Society board for a number of years. And last June had her garden dug and has been replanted in, I think, 10 beds on the land bank property right across from Nancy Severin's house. So as you're driving up Vesper Lane, there is a little dirt road just past the hospital on your right. You can pull in that dirt road and you'll see a little split rail fence. It's land bank property. They've put in a little parking area for 3 or 4 cars. So feel free to pull in there and stop, and you can walk through. This is the first year for the garden. So it'll take a few years for it to become established, but our hope is to have it as a teaching garden so people can see different varieties, and that's thanks to Sally and Peter and thanks to the land bank for allowing us to go in there. It's a perfect spot. It's close to the schools. It's easy for people to, stop in and see that. So this is what Sally's yard looked like last year. There are still quite a few out there, but hopefully over the years you will be able to enjoy them on that land bank property because we want to keep this going and have people get excited. Okay, that brings us to today. We've gone from the Boys and Girls Club. We were at Legion Hall for a few shows. We did the Harbor House meeting room forever. Nancy can remember all those days of setting up over there. We went to the Gordon Folger Hotel, long, long time. We went to the Coffin School, which I loved the venue, but in all of these different cases, the show got too large. So we had to find a new venue. Enter Bartlett Farm. They have become a partner with us and the American Daffodil Society in putting on this show. It's an awesome location in the greenhouse. I can spill water and no one gets excited. It's, you're always worried about going into a venue, especially with carpet, and we get a little messy at times. There are 3 different classes now to enter in the show. We have our natural horticulture section, which are your single stems and collections of daffodils. We do have our artistic. This is what the show looks like now, as you can see from the first pool tables to this was last year. We have definitely come a long way. The show bench now, we don't have Coke bottles, we have little wooden things. But this is what you would see if you were to visit the show now, the horticulture section. And I'm going to give you little tips and show you what the schedule is, because it can be pretty intimidating if it's the first time you've looked at it. But you can see, it's great fun. The show can change every year based on the season. I think this year, because things have been late, We may have a very yellow and orange show, you never know, as opposed to the pinks and the whites, which are later varieties. Needless to say, I grow pink and white, so it was a little hard this morning at 38 degrees to go out and see what yellow daffodils I had to even show you. But that just means every year, if you've come to the show once, every year it can change, because it's all weather dependent, that's for sure. Not only do we have the horticulture, we have arrangements there as well. Wonderful titles. I have a handout that we'll go over with you in a little bit, just to show you that. Plus, the past few years we've added the kids' arrangements. The children, we love it when they come in. Just tell a child that they can throw daffodils in a rain boot and pretend they're walking on a cobblestone street, and this is what you get from a whole kindergarten class. It was great fun and very easy to give everyone a blue ribbon. Photography. Photography section in the show has gotten to be quite fun now. We started out with just a few, and it's amateurs and professionals, different classes. But the photography, what's fun about this is if you don't have space to grow, everyone seems to have, I think we're taking more pictures now because of the technology. We've all got an iPhone, and we're clicking, and we're doing this, and and so that anything, and then you can just email that picture to the camera shop if you want, and they'll just print it for you. So it's very, a lot easier than it used to be. So photography is a great way to show off daffodils and show the love. I would like to see this section grow over the years. Right now, we have one class, and they can subdivide. But I think it would be fun to have daffodils and pets, and daffodils with children, and picnics, and and expand it. There is now a national American Daffodil Society ribbon for the best photograph of the show, so they recognize that photography is the way to go too, especially for people that may not be able to garden for whatever reason. When you go to other shows, I threw these in just so you'd say that we're not all crazy, but this was an entry section at a show that I went to last year down in Gloucester, Virginia. And people are sitting there, and they're cleaning, and they're staging, and they're writing out their entry cards, and they're filling out all this and trying to figure out where they're going to put things on the show bench. And it can be quite fun. It can also be overwhelming when you walk into a room and you see people that have brought in all these flowers. This was 2 weeks ago in Little Rock, Arkansas. And that's where the national show was this year, the last weekend in March. So it's kind of fun to see people coming in with their buckets of flowers, because they come from all over the country and sometimes all over the world, and they travel with daffodils. We have. Here's a woman who was just sitting down with all of her flowers and trying to figure out how she's going to enter. So it gets to be a little scientific and also a little bit fun. And yes, indeed, we clean daffodils. I was reminded yesterday to mention that we are not painting them orange in this, that we are actually getting the dirt out, and no, we don't color them, but that's exactly what this person is doing, and that's what I'm going to show you now. I think half of the fun of doing this is to see that anyone can enter the flower show. It does not have to be someone that grows 100 or 200 different varieties. You can have a clump of 2 or 3 varieties in your yard, and you can still enter the show in multiple ways. So I'm going to ask my helpers if they will pass out some papers for you. I wanted you to see these slides before we got into the nitty-gritty of how to enter the show. First of all, there's a sheet that you're going to receive. Most people don't realize that there are 13 different divisions of daffodils. And the sheet you will see is just very easy to show you the different divisions. Most people are familiar with Division 1, which is your big fat trumpets. You think of those as your old-time King Alfreds and your Carltons and your Mount Hoods. And basically a trumpet daffodil is one where the cup is longer than the petals. Not rocket science. Division 1 daffodils. Okay, here, does it look like a trumpet? It looks like a trumpet. Is it longer? Yes, it is. Okay. This is something here. This would be your Division 1, big fat yellow. Object would be to find, I picked these this morning when it was wonderful 38 degrees, just to show you that you can have different sizes from the same clump of daffodils. This one's a little bit smaller, sort of looking up. If I would to choose one of these, I would probably take this guy. I think he looks pretty good. We always recut because then they are good to get a good drink of water. It's a little twirly. This variety is supposed to be a little twirly. Some are supposed to be a lot flatter. Now, you put it in, when you come to the show, if you have any, you'll get this is at the show, this is at the show, and all of a sudden you have to realize, oh my goodness, how is the judge going to see this little guy? Obviously, you want the daffodil not to move because the judges can't touch the flower. So we have boxwood and things, and all you do is put a little boxwood in there. You're not going to go anywhere now. And it just keeps it straight. If you were to look at this guy and say, needs a bath, good old paintbrush. Best invention ever. Paintbrush, just get the dirt off. I suggest that people, when they plant, they put some mulch on it, and not something that's going to spray more dirt when it rains. Think about it. I use pine needles, first of all, because I have so many in my yard and they're free. And I just put them over the beds when I plant, so when the daffodils come up through it, the pine needles will keep them from the dirt. So happily, these are nice and clean because of that. But you want to just, clean it. Make sure that it's, the best specimen you've got of all your daffodils. For instance, I picked this morning. Oh, poor thing. Look at, we got a bite out of this. We've got the cup that's split. Enjoy it on your kitchen table, but don't bring it to the show. Plain and simple. Because you wouldn't want to waste time doing something on this one where you have another one that is in better shape, much better shape. So if you're going to enter this guy, you say, okay, well, that's great. I think I know the name. I think it's Carlton. I think it's supposed to be twirly. I've looked at pictures. The American Daffodil Society has a wonderful website now called daffodilusa.org. There are probably 18,000 photos on there now. So if you buy bulbs in the fall and plant, my suggestion is remember the name. Do a map. If you don't want to put little tombstones out like I have in my yard. I had a friend once that came for dinner and looked out my dining room window and said, what's that? Looks like a cemetery for mice. And I said, well, it sort of is. We have little gray markers, and it's got their name, their color, the year they were born, the country they came from, and who their mom and dad were. So that's the whole lineage of, a hybridized daffodil. But anyway, okay, here we've got this guy. All right, looks pretty clean, staged, not going to go anywhere. We're going to now have an entry card, and I don't know if you can see that too well, but you have to figure out, okay, where on that massive show bench are you going to put this? On that second multiple page sheet that I sent you that has the cover on the front. If you look at sort of page 4 maybe, you'll see horticulture classes. I didn't do the whole schedule. I just wanted to show you a little bit of, it's not hard to do this. Okay, you should see a section A, B, and C in a right-hand column. Okay, section A, what is that? Those are novice growers. Those are people that grow fewer than 50 varieties. Plain and simple, easy. You don't have to think about it. You've got 20 or you've got 5. You're in that class. When I enter the show, I am in section B. Several years ago when Sally Nash and I were talking, and I said, I'm not going to enter the show anymore, and I said, Sally, you shouldn't enter the show. I said, we need to change the schedule. Because I was getting into it a little bit more, And I didn't want to deter people from entering. You know, the role of an American Daffodil Society judge is to give out ribbons and to encourage people, you know, to do this, to have the love of daffodils that we have. So we came up with two different sections, Section A for novice, Section B. So if you're looking at this now, you're saying, okay, well, that's great. We know it's Section A. So on the top of this chart, and see up there, Section A, all novices for single stems, Section A. You don't even have to think about it. Now, the next section is class. So if you look under Section A, under trumpets, that first division, you'll see class. All the classes is grouping like colors. So this little guy here, big guy here, colored perianth. Perianth, another word for petals. And I always tell people when we try to do the schedule, before the commas, the petals, after the commas, the cup. So you've got perianth and corona. So, colored perianth. This is colored, it's yellow. And then yellow, orange, or red in the trumpet. Yellow in the trumpet. This would be entered in, as a novice, Section A, Class 1. That's all you do. And hopefully, if you know the name, you would put the name of the cultivar there, your name and address, and then after you fill that out, this is what the cards look like. We have them at the show, and they're around town, too, at different places. So nobody knows it's yours. It gets folded. So your name is hidden. All you see is Section A, the class, the name of the cultivar, not your name. It goes in the little slot. We got really smart. We used to have picture drapery hooks. And then someone said, well, why don't we put a slot in there? And I think it was probably Charles Davy, Nancy's son, that did a lot of this slot work for us. But it made it quite easy because then the judges could take it out and mark for second, third, whatever. The key with the Nantucket daffodil, and I'm going to show you on the screen as well. If you see, okay, I lost it. See that N? When you close up the card, we have special awards for Nantucket grown flowers. So make sure you put an N if you're going to enter on here. Because there are national awards, and sometimes our flowers, we have our own. We have the best pink, best white, best color that's not part of the American Daffodil Society. But also, we have our own trophies, our Nantucket trophies. And if indeed the best in show that might be picked by the American Daffodil Society isn't a Nantucket flower, then the next one that gets the most votes might be a Nantucket flower. That's whose name goes on the trophy. So we did that so we could keep our trophies local. But obviously we're under the auspices of the American Daffodil Society. Okay, this guy entered, done, 1. Okay, got 3 more. Let's pretend these are all the same size. If you look under the same thing, Section C, Section C is 3 stems of the same flower. So 3 of these guys can be entered as 1 entry. So now you've taken 4 daffodils that you have in your yard, and you've entered them 2 different ways. This is just a matter of trying to make sure when you do a triple that they're all uniform. You know, one isn't really big and the other 2 try to, pick the best. I try to stage mine so that you've got, 3 of them. They should be looking at you. We do what's called clocking. Think of the clock, 12 and 6. Yeah, this little guy's off and this little guy's off. If you just take this, you can turn the back and make it 12 and 6. And if you break it off, enjoy it in a bowl of water on your kitchen table, because we've all done that. But judges look for clocking. This variety is supposed to be twirly. But if you know the variety, you can go on daffodilusa.org on DAPSeek, and you can see all these photos to verify that, yes, indeed, that's the variety. So this is staged pretty much the same way with the boxwood, just so it doesn't twirl. And then you would do another entry, another card, only instead of section A, you're now section C, because you've got 3. And it would be class 75, because all the triples under your trumpets. That's it. That's all there is to it. And I know when you go to the show and you look at this, you go, oh, I can't possibly do that. The other little sheet of paper that I shows the different divisions, you can see where you've got your trumpets, you've got your large cups, you've got your doubles. A lot of people will say, what are those funny looking things? Well, the double daffodils almost look like a rose. And on your schedule, in case to help you, we put those same little pictures. So if you know you have a double, you can see on page 2, all your doubles are under division 4. But those are, I don't have any doubles. Well, I do, actually. This is what one looks like. This daffodil I bring to all my shows, never wins. It's more sentimental. This is a daffodil that was planted in Connecticut at my family homestead. My grandmother told me her mother planted them, and she thinks it was around 1870. So this, I naturally dug them up and now have them here. So when I was young, this was the only daffodil I ever knew. This was the only one we only had one time in the yard, and it was this. But this is an old timer, and actually, this is our Bible. This will give you some idea of, we think there's about 28,000 varieties of daffodils. And every year there's new hybridized daffodils. And this book sort of tells you the classes and the names and the age and whatever. We also have sections in the show now where these guys could be entered in section A and section C. We also have a separate section which is called historic. So this same flower could also go in historic, because I know this is pre-1940. And if you need to verify the date, we have these books. So you could have 10 of the same. You could enter a single one, you could enter a triple, then you could say, wait a minute, is a historic? You can enter it in the historics, 1 and a triple. So that even though you may only have one batch of, clump of daffodils, it could be entered several different ways. And I think that's what's fun about it. But this little guy, I just want to see what the date is. This claims to be around pre-1620. And these were probably a lot of the old heirlooms and historics that were brought into the country. I was told the story that when women would first come here, they would put bulbs in the hems of their skirts and bring them in, and then that's how and then of course a lot of these became the parents for hybridized and other different varieties. This little guy, cute, but not quite ready yet. Will be. See, look at it. Now, if this was in the house, probably overnight, with a little warmth, it would probably, at least show some color. You'll find that some of your daffodils will open yellow, and the more sun, they'll turn white, and they'll go, wait a minute, I ordered an all-white daffodil, what is going on here? There's one variety that I love, it's called Salome. It opens yellow, and it's a trumpet, and it turns salmony pink the more sunlight's on it. It's a good grower, too, and it's always good at shows. But there's all sorts of wonderful little tricks. This is one that is there again, another trumpet. I picked him this morning. This is a Division 1, too. This is a brand new one. It's called Sargata. I've never grown it. And as it opens, you'll see The petals are yellow, and then the cup is pink. Now it's opened a little bit yellow this morning, but the more light on this turns, according to what I'm told, a rosy pink. Obviously, I didn't do any water here, but I would just sort of stage that. It is okay when you're in the garden and you have multiples and you don't know what they are to write the name on the stem in ballpoint pen. Doesn't wash off, not against the rules, because lots of times you don't know what it is and you might have two that look very similar. So you can always put the name on the stem. We would just sort of stage this little guy too. And you talk to them, they become your friends for at least a day or two and tell them this is their big chance, do it right. Because we'll tell all our friends if you're a star. There again, very easy to stage. Once you get past the singles and the triples, then it just opens up a whole new world of possibilities in that there are collections of 5, 12, 24. There's all sorts of, and I hope you can have a chance to come to the show this year because we are a regional show this year, which the regional shows rotate around New England, and we happen to be one this year. I think they gave us the honor because of our 40th, which means people from away will come with flowers, and you'll get to see flowers that are just incredible that you may never have seen before. This is, if you look on your little sheet this is a Division 6, one of my favorites. It's supposed to look like this. So you'll see Division 6s are what they call the little reflex, the little windblown look. I grow this one mainly because of its name. It's called Surfside. And I live in Surfside. So I had to buy it. But this is a great little grower, really fun. When I buy bulbs for some of the children that I give bulbs to, I always try to buy them names that are kind of fun, like Surfside and Sailboat, and, all this, Rosy Charm. Because then it's like, oh, they'll remember the name, first of all, especially if it's a little yellow, white, that Sailboat. And this one, they all remember because it's Surfside. And it says, think of it as the surf. But this is a Division 6, so if you were to enter this in the show, you look over on the page where you see Division 6 as opposed to Division 1, is probably the second page, and this would be, there again, single stem novice would be Section A by itself, and this is white perianth, think of perianth as the petals, and this is yellow in the cup, so it would be Section A, Class 26. Simple, simple, simple. But I know if the first time I looked at one of these schedules, I went, oh, no. I have no clue what you're talking about. But it is really, really easy. Listen, most of you people that know me know if it's not fun, I wouldn't do it. And it should be fun. It should be fun. But there's that little guy. He is not one that you would bend the petals elsewhere, because if you look at your little sheet, it'll see that your Division 6 is supposed to be reflexed on an angle, and it's not necessarily, this variety doesn't look at you, this one looks down. We can't forget our minis. Love this little mini, and it's really kind of fun. He will last a long time, snipe, and does come back. I find sometimes where I live, minis to me can almost be like an annual. I would have to plant them every year, so I have 3 or 4 that come up every year, which means I love them because I don't have to plant them every year. But if you're doing a mini, obviously you have a little mini tube and a little mini card, but it's the exact same thing. It's the same, only there is a section, and I don't know if I did it. Yeah, probably on that last page. Section D and E are miniatures. They just have their own little grouping. But the divisions are all the same. The color codes are all the same. And, it's pretty easy to do. But Anyway, any questions? Here's another guy. Watch this. Any,
Question? You can raise your hand. We'll come over to you with the microphone.
just remember, this is fun. Let's not be too serious here.
I just have an historic question. You were talking about bulbs that you had from your grandparents, and you also talked about bulbs from the 1600s. So is that, were you saying that the women put the bulbs from England? Were these bulbs from England originally?
Probably, or Spain, mountains. There were, who knows where. This was probably a wild hybrid that just started somewhere.
And from otherwise,
Yeah,
where,
could have been.
because they don't grow wild, do they?
Oh, yeah, and Spain and up in the mountains and all, they're in the hillside. There's a lot of wild daffodils.
So could this conceivably be a wild
It probably
daffodil
was.
at one time?
And then someone got smart and said, oh, let's give it a name.
That really amazed me.
I know,
that
isn't it
whole
cute?
piece about,
I
well,
know. It'll
No.
never win anything, but it's just, I have to do
No,
it
the
for
piece
my
that it's
great-grandmother.
from the 1600s, do we know if they're any earlier
Mm-hmm.
than that?
Yeah, and there are a lot. This booklet here, which is done by the Royal Horticultural Society, and in London, they help do all the classifications of bulbs. This is where all your dates are. And if you have something on DaffSeek, you can go in and see the dates. So that we have now created, as of 2 years ago, a whole nother section for competitors to do, which is called classic daffodils. And those are anything that has been hybridized after 1940 to 1969, right? And our dear friend who came up with that, who's on the daffodil board with us, said it was from, what? Something to Woodstock. It was from World War II to Woodstock. So that now has its own separate, and they're called classics, like classic cars. And you'll see a lot of the, and it was just another way for people to expand the show bench, which is why the farm is so good to us now, because we keep growing and we keep creating. This class of 3 wasn't in our show in the very beginning. I wanted this class, and we were able to get it added a few years ago. And just because it created a little more activity, people would just want. And it was already sort of sanctioned by the American Daffodil Society to do triples. We just never tried it. So now that we've expanded and do it, Nancy Severance was the great. Nancy used to win with her triples of her Mary Copeland every year. Yes, good old Mary. There again, a historic could have been entered singly, could have been entered in the historic class, could have been entered here, could be part of a collection. We have a lot of different collections. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, it should be fun. There again, if it's not fun. Any other? A couple. No. I want to show people that anyone here can grow a daffodil, and anyone here can have yellow fever and have the fun of entering in the flower show, because I got to tell you, if you get that first honorable mention, you're hooked. That's all it takes, because you go, I won something at the show. Now, this year, because it's our 40th, obviously I want everyone to go out and pick whatever you have in your yard, which may be nothing, but it's going to be 60 on Tuesday, so there's hope. And just bring it in. People will say, I don't know the names. Well, you know what? I don't know 28,000 names either. But if you want to bring something in, my suggestion is to come in on Friday. We're there from 3 to 6 at the farm. A lot of our off-island judges who are accredited American Daffodil Society judges will be there on Friday, and they are a great resource because they have traveled around the country and judged a lot of shows so that they've gotten to know firsthand a lot of different varieties. Plus, we always have a computer there. You can always look up, on DaffSeek to see the different varieties. This is another little guy, too, that's awfully cute. I think Jetfire, which normally would be back a little more. But he just opened this morning. I think it got so cold, he said, get me out of here. Please, take me inside.
I think we have one more question.
What can we do to get our slow openers ready for the show in 9 days? How can we get our daffodils ready, to open instead of the refrigeration problem of years ago? How can we make them open for the show? Some tips, please.
Well, we could talk to the weatherman and say, can we have a little warm front moving through? I've actually brought them in the house and tried to do sometimes the warmth of the house, if they're starting to show color, will work. I've also done the light bulb trick where I put them, if I want something to show color, I will put them in their holder or whatever and put it up so if it's a trumpet that it's facing a light bulb. Don't put it down if the light bulb's up here because it'll look and it's not supposed to. So you sort of have to figure out, where you put the bulb. But yeah, that works. One year I will tell you something that was really, probably shouldn't share, but I will. It was a really, really cold spring, and I thought, how am I going to, I had nothing to show, and I really wanted to. So I thought, well, if you can proof bread in an oven, why can't you put daffodils in an oven? It's an insulated box with warm water in a pan. What could hurt? Well, I have to tell you, it worked. I wouldn't suggest you do that. I had to write signs all over the oven, don't turn on the oven. But I did. I just put a pan of hot water in there, and the next morning they were all open. So it was warm. Anna. I can't hear you. Hair
At
dryer.
the Chelsea Flower Show in England, they use a gentle, low hairdryer on the day of.
Yeah. I put them by light bulbs. But that, sure, it's the same thing. It's warmth is what they're looking for. They're looking for some heat. So anyway. Oh, Stacy.
Mary, if you are entering a photograph, do you have to know the name of the flower?
No. Photographs. I have some complete show schedules here if anyone is interested. No, photographs, not at all. It's just to have fun with it. There's some rules in there on sizes and things, but no, that's way above and beyond. The flower arrangements this year, we have added a different, one more class, and I put that on, I think, page 3 of your notes. These are the arrangement classes, and obviously we're honoring the 40th this year. So we're honoring things that the Garden Club has done or people that have been involved with daffodils have done over the past 40 years. So we have the Main Street Fountain. We have the men's only arrangements. Okay, gentlemen, listen up. The title for that is Celebrating the Antique Car Parade, Flint Ranny's Dream, and it's called Daffodils on Parade. So think about that. I'd love to see a few more men enter. We also have a miniature class, which is 8 inches in any direction. These are not strict Garden Club of America rules. This is a fun community show. Have fun with it. Just bring in things. Just put a few daffodils in it. That's all we ask. But ribbons and daffodils, that was based on the first ribbon cutting. So I've had some people working on, doing that. We have the kids. Don't miss to see what the kids do. We hope it'll be a good year this year. It's a school vacation ending week, so sometimes that can affect the number of entries, but we do the preschool and then the middle school and high school. And then this year, we always had a family arrangement class, and I said to the chairman, it'd be really nice if we could just say family or group. Maybe you have an office group or people that you work with or your neighbors or your book club or whatever. That could just do an arrangement. So we have the family or group arrangement class, which is daffodils to decorate a Sconset picnic. So think about that. get a group together, call your friends, get your coworkers. I think it'd be fun. You could have a picnic basket. You could have plates, tables, there's all sorts of things you could do with a picnic. And then just, enter it into the show. So please. The show, as you know, is that Saturday afternoon of Daffodil Saturday. Show is open at Bartlett's from 2 to 5 that day. And tell your friends, we do have a free shuttle bus from down by Greenhound, Saturday only, very important, that will take people out to the farm for free. So if you're in town and you're watching the parade, you can tell people they can just go over after the cars leave. If they're not going to Sconset, they can just hop on the shuttle bus, and they run about there's 2 buses, so they run about every 15, 20 minutes, and you can have lunch here in town, or you can have lunch at the farm, and then come see the show. I will be there pretty much all weekend. I'm happy to give personal tours, get people excited, so that next fall you'll go plant, and hopefully you can be part of the 41st show. My goal is over the next 10 years to get a lot of people excited and get us to plant more daffodils so that by the time we do the 50th, God willing, I will be here and we will be looking at this archive tape to say, oh, how do we do that? And we'll just repeat this. But I think that's all for today. If you have any questions, Elizabeth. Sunday, it's 10 to 4:30. So it's pretty much all day Sunday. It is free. We welcome people to come out. There's no charge, and we do have a donation basket, so give lots and give often, because that only will mean more bulbs in the ground. So thank you very much for having me today. And I'm in the phone book, and I will be happy to help with anyone. I'm going to the island home to see what's in their front yard, and I will enter for them. But I'm happy to help if anyone needs entry. Thank you.